Confession of Faith, Chapter 9, of Free Will. Section 1. God hath endowed the will of man with that natural liberty that is neither forced nor by any absolute necessity of nature determined to good or evil. Question 1. Has God endowed the will of man with a natural liberty? Answer, yes. Matthew 17, verse 12. Matthew 17, verse 12. But I say unto you that Elias is come already, and they knew him not, but have done unto him whatsoever they listed. Likewise shall also the Son of Man suffer of them. In our discussion of free will, it should be noted, first of all, that man's free will is not independent from God. Man is totally dependent upon God in regard, first, to his being, secondly, to his activity, thirdly, to God's prerogative to obligate him to his will and laws, so that his commands must be loved and what he has forbidden is to be hated, and, fourthly, to the foreknowledge and decree of God, for he infallibly knows and has decreed that every matter and deed will have a certain outcome and none other. This foreknowledge cannot be thwarted, and this decree cannot be changed. Secondly, the will does not function independently from the judgment faculty of the intellect. The will cannot possibly function apart from the intellect. Neither can it do otherwise than follow the dictates of the intellect, for man is a rational being, and therefore functions rationally. Otherwise the will would be able to reject that which is good, as well as that which is perceived as being good, and find delight in sin as sin, all of which is irrational. Thirdly, the will of man is not free from human peculiarities, for man functions according to his nature. A man who is perfectly holy in his nature will be a servant of righteousness, and the will shall respond likewise. Romans 6, verse 18. Romans 6, verse 18. Being then made free from sin, ye became the servants of righteousness. However, if man is nothing but sin in all his characteristics, he is a servant of sin. John 8, verse 34. John 8, verse 34. Jesus answered them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, whosoever committeth sin is the servant of sin. The will responds and functions in harmony with man's sinful nature. To a holy nature belongs a holy will, and to a sinful nature, a sinful will. Even though the will is necessarily dependent upon the matters mentioned, this necessity does not eliminate the freedom of the will. Nor is this necessity compulsory in nature, since the will responds spontaneously. Question 2. Is this will of man forced? Answer, no. James 1, verse 14. James 1, verse 14. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust, and enticed. First, the will is free from external compulsion. All the people on earth cannot force someone's will or cause him to do something which he is not willing to do. In order to cause someone to do another's will, however, the matter must be presented in such a manner that the person voluntarily chooses and wills, and thus functions according to his own will. Secondly, the will of man is also free from natural instinct, by which animals, without being conscious of it, are motivated to function according to their purpose, for the will responds to the intellect and functions rationally. Question 3. Is this will of man under any necessity of nature determined to good or evil? Answer, no. Deuteronomy 30, verse 19. Deuteronomy 30, verse 19. I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live. Man possesses the inalienable faculty of choosing as upon the whole he judges right or desirable. For first, from the consideration that while we are conscious in every deliberate act of choice that we might have chosen otherwise, all the external conditions being the same, we always feel that our choice was determined by the sum total of our views, feelings, and tendencies at the time. A man freely chooses what he wants to choose. He would not choose freely if he chose in any other way. But his desire in the premises is determined by his whole intellectual and emotional state at the time. Secondly, it is plain that if the human will decided in any given case in opposition to all the views of the reason and all the desires of the heart, however free the will might be, the man would be a most pitiful slave to a mere irrational and immoral power of willing. Thirdly, all men judge that the rational and moral character of any act results from the purpose or desire, the internal state of mind or heart which prompted the act. If the man wills in any given case in opposition to all his judgments and to all his inclinations of every kind, his act in that case would obviously be neither rational nor moral, and the man himself, in respect to that act, would be neither free nor responsible. Fourthly, if the human soul had the power to act thus irrespective of its entire interior intellectual and emotional condition at the time, such action could neither be foreseen nor controlled by God, nor influenced by men, and such exercise of volitional power would be absolutely fortuitous. It would sustain no certain relation to the character of the agent. Christ taught, in opposition to this, that human action is determined by the character of the agent, as certainly as the nature of the fruit is determined by the nature of the tree from which it springs, and that the only way to change the character of the action is to change the permanent character or moral tendency and habit of the heart of the agent. Matthew 7, verses 16 through 20, as well as Matthew 12, verses 33 through 35. Matthew 7, verses 16 through 20. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down, and cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits ye shall know them. Matthew 12, verses 33 through 35. Either make the tree good and his fruit good, or else make the tree corrupt and his fruit corrupt, for the tree is known by his fruit. O generation of vipers, how can ye, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh. A good man out of the good treasure of the heart bringeth forth good things, and an evil man out of the evil treasure bringeth forth evil things. So, free will may be said to consist of two things. First, the choice, so that what is done by a previous judgment of reason. And, secondly, the willingness, so that what is done voluntarily and without compulsion. The will is possessed of a liberty, not of indifference, but of rational spontaneity.